We got ready. Three, two, one. Broadcasting tape delayed from Irving, Texas, where what's in Irving, Texas? The headquarters of the CW. And what's on the CW? WWE Wrestling on Tuesday nights. All right, so today's show, we're talking to Jeff about WWE ratings for the three shows during the week, which you have Monday Night Raw, NXT on Tuesday night, and SmackDown. Some people call it SmackDown, some people call it Friday SmackDown, whatever you want to call it. And then the four main events. What are the four large pay-per-views, Jeff?
Our large pay-per-views are Royal Rumble, Wrestlemania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series.
All right. So I'm going to read a little bit, excuse me. I'm going to read a little bit about some stuff I found on the internet because it's all true.
What is
And
this?
then, yes, and I'm going to have you do a little bit of comments since this is right up your alley.
It
This
is.
stuff here. Yes.
Yes. Used to be on another podcast for many years about this kind of a thing. So
Okay.
excited to get back into my wheelhouse here.
Oh, great. Glad I could help you out. All right. So I got this from corporatewwe.com. It says WWE Raw wrestles up, play on words, 4.9 million global views for Netflix's debut, which was January 9th, 2025. Netflix and WWE announced that the debut episode of Raw on Netflix got off to a strong start, with the Monday night programming capturing 4.9 million people globally. The inaugural event on Netflix averaged 2.6 million households in the United States, according to VideoAmp, which is 116% higher than Raw's average 2024 U.S. audience of 1.2 million households. I know this is a lot of numbers, but that's what we're talking about ratings, so you kind of got to live with this stuff instead of just glossing over it. Because this is where the money's made, right? The
Exactly. TV
geek,
is where the
the,
money's made.
the geeks sit down and go through these numbers, and then they negotiate how much we're going to pay for this based on ad prices. Anyway, in the past 5 years, the event also more than doubled the 18 to 49 audience, which is right in the wheelhouse of where they're looking. The New York Times reported on January 23rd the agreement with Netflix is more than $5 billion for 10 years, with an option to extend an additional 10 years. So, with all that information, is Netflix going to come out smelling like a rose, paying $5 billion to WWE for Monday Night Raw?
Well, hard to say. It's so early in the deal, but so far so good, I would say. Um, the the deal with Netflix is probably one of the more groundbreaking, one of the bigger risks they've ever taken in terms of production. Just from the standpoint of Raw was on cable. Raw was made for cable. It was on USA, TNN, Spike TV, USA again, but that was a good 31-year run on cable.
I did read that it was 30 plus years that it was on.
Now, it debuted in 1993. Started as an hour, expanded to 2 hours, was 2 hours forever. Then it became 3 hours, and that's where problems kind of started. A perfect wrestling show, in my opinion, is 2.5 hours long.
Okay.
So
A
that
little bit
extra
longer than
half
a movie.
hour, what's that?
A little bit longer than a movie, a long movie.
Yeah, exactly. Just like a typical sporting event, you know. Most
Yeah.
sporting events you go to 2.5 to 3 hours long.
Yeah.
It was getting a little monotonous sometimes to produce for Raw, and it was getting monotonous for the fans. And people were saying that years and years ago when they decided to go to 3 hours. Now, what I've noticed with them now, they don't have the constraints of a time limit. They don't have constraints of television of typical linear cable television, so they're just able to make a
Yeah.
show as long as they want. And now, obviously, they're going to make it more than 2 hours every single time, just because people
Mhm.
expect that. But they don't
There's no,
feel like they're not going to rush segments. They're not going to cut segments. They don't really need to cut segments if they don't want to,
yeah.
because they have more freedom on Netflix to do what they really want. Now, this
And
Netflix deal, to be clear, Raw is on Netflix in the United States and around the world. Globally, WWE's pretty much all their pay-per-views and all their they're not called pay-per-views anymore. They're called premium live events because you don't pay-per-view anymore. It's a streaming
Yeah.
service. But those events are all on Netflix. Now, WWE still has that deal with Peacock where all their premium live events are still streaming. So when we watch WrestleMania next week, it will be on Peacock.
Okay. So, anyways, you were talking about the time constraints. They also don't have to deal with commercial breaks at all.
No, they don't, and they have ad breaks. They do. That's just
Netflix has ad breaks.
well, WWE builds into that in the ad
Okay.
breaks, so they're still selling spots in their own show,
Okay.
Which is genius to be completely honest. And I think
Yeah.
Netflix is also kind of they're able to promote shows during it too, so it's kind of a win-win for them. Netflix really wanted to expand into live sports. They did that with the Christmas NFL games. A couple weeks before that was the Tyson Jake Paul fight, which kind of showed. A lot of people were a little concerned about Netflix having the rights to live sports because the streaming for the Paul Tyson fight was not good. A lot of people were complaining about problems, freezing. I
Mhm.
remember I was at Wavy. I was working that night, and we could only really get it on a small TV back in the sports station in the sports department. A big TV on the desk, we weren't able to get it because the streaming was just so poor. So people were concerned about that, but so far I think they've had minimal problems with
The
tech.
NFL, yeah, the NFL as far on that Christmas, there were a few people that had issues, but most people did not.
Now, I
But
had no
also,
issues.
you don't know exactly what you need until you put something out there. So when they put that fight out there, they realize, oh, we need something better than what we got because we have the NFL coming up.
Exactly, and I think some of that had to do with I don't know how much of that was a Netflix production as much as it was Jake Paul's promotion company doing that since he was the promoter of his own fight. He's the promoter of his own fights. If you
Yeah.
didn't know, that's why he makes
Okay.
a lot of money. He's a
Yeah.
very good fight promoter. He's a terrible fighter.
Hey, hey, it's all a show. It's all a show.
That's what
So
it is,
anyway,
and
yeah,
I think that kind of goes into the wrestling. Wrestling's a show,
yeah,
and um, I think it was a great move. I think Triple H, who is now in charge of creative, Paul Levesque, he seems very happy with the move. I think it was a fresh start for him creatively.
yeah,
So it's I think it's a win, and it's gonna be a win to have them on Netflix for the foreseeable future. It is a big loss for linear cable television,
yeah,
but at least there is still wrestling on linear cable television with SmackDown and All Elite Wrestling as well.
yeah. But you have to go where you see where the best opportunity to make more money is. And they obviously like, well, Netflix, people see Netflix as this is the future. Cable TV, in my opinion, is not the future. So,
And it seems to be the consensus among pretty much every media company. You see this. There's every major network has a streaming service. NBC
yes.
has Peacock.
Mhm.
CBS has Paramount Plus. Turner has Max. You have Fox has Fox Nation, which they don't really do sports, but they do have a streaming app for their sports.
Yes.
So
They also try to get into this thing called venue TV, which failed due to legal issues. So
it,
anyway,
so yeah, so a lot of because they want control of their libraries, they want control of their properties instead of because it used to be when Netflix first came out, it was a streaming service and they were just buying up the rights to shows where they were having like 5-year deal to have this show on here, and Max was the same way. But it's when the networks started realizing why would we lease our own stuff when we could just have our own our own streaming service. Disney Plus was the first major one I think that really came out besides Netflix. So it does seem that these networks and even cable networks realize that the money's going to be in streaming. Now, that's not to say if this gets too expensive, people are going to be dying to get cable back because I know some people who already are. But
How many streaming
it's just
services do they have? That's the question, you know.
exactly like I don't have every streaming service in the world. There's some stuff I've watched before that I can't watch right now because like perfect example, Apple TV Plus, very
Mhm.
niche streaming service, but there's great shows on there like Severance. I want to see the second season of Severance, but I'm not paying for Apple TV, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to at least either wait to meet somebody who's a friend, is like, hey, you want to watch Severance or something, or I'm gonna have to wait for it. I don't know. I would love to see that show again, but
Yeah.
it's
That's the
money's
way it
tight, you know.
goes. Yeah, well, I've got one streaming service, so which is Netflix. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, all this other stuff has things I'd like to watch, but like, and I don't have cable. The one thing that I had to get over when I dropped cable was no sports. So
That's the difficult thing for me if I
yeah.
don't have cable. Like I'm very fortunate. My parents are very cool with me using their DirecTV password, so I'm able to watch pretty much whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very nice of them that they let me do that because I'm able to stay engaged with pretty much any sport that
Uh-huh.
I like
Yeah.
to watch.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people many people who don't have that luxury or can't afford cable or don't want to pay for cable. I
Yeah.
don't blame people for
I
not
don't
wanting to pay for cable. It's
I don't want
expensive.
to I don't want to pay for it. So what I
Yeah.
have done, what I have decided, I'm going back to my youth of 1979 when you couldn't watch live baseball, you had a phone. Or and I'm sorry, I've got a phone. Then you had to, pick it up on the radio or find out the next day of the scores. But now I've got this phone. I can, like today, the Cardinals were playing. I can keep up with the score. And I mean, they have a little bit of graphics and stuff. You can just watch it that way. It's
Yeah.
not as exciting, but hey, if it's going to save me a few
Right in your
$100 a
pocket. You could
month,
find out, oh, let me check the score of the Guardians game.
yeah,
Oh, look, they're losing like usual. How impressive.
yeah,
But back in the day, for me anyway, it was you watch your team, but then, I mean, go back to cable, you turn on ESPN late at night, you see the highlights of the other games and figure out
yeah.
who's the best player in your favorite sports that
All
way.
right, so we got to move on. We're talking about wrestling, not sports viewing on cable,
Yes, we are.
because it's a never-ending subject. I know. All right, so next, now we're moving on to NXT wrestling, which
Mm-hmm.
is why we're broadcasting from Irving, Texas. NXT, which serves as a showcase for WWE's developmental talent, airs on CW in a five has a there's a 5-year deal. A source close to the deal pegged the value of the deal to WWE at about 20 to 25 million dollars a year. And according to WrestleNomics, which is a great website I found the other day, the
Brandon
average
Thurston's great.
you
The
know
guy who
you
runs that,
know
Brandon Thurston, he's wonderful. I've actually seen
uh,
him wrestle in person.
okay, well I mean I looked at this site, I was like, my goodness, this guy puts a lot of effort into this.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so the average rating on NXT from the last 3 seasons, I calculated this up, was the last 3 shows, the last Tuesday of March and the first 2 Tuesdays of April, has an average of 665,000 people are watching live on the CW. That is great for the
Excellent number
CW.
for the CW.
And by the way, CW stands for CBS Warner Brothers. In case
Yes.
all you people out there wanted to know that.
Remember how it was born, right? UPN and
Yeah,
WB merged together.
yeah. I knew that, but I didn't know what the CW actually stood for until somebody told me about it. I was like, oh, that's what it is. But for 665,000 people to be watching the CW on a Tuesday night is great. So how long is that show?
That is a 2 hour show.
It's a 2 hour show.
It's a two
Okay.
hour show, commercial, so probably a good hour and a half of wrestling promos, segments, whatnot.
Yeah. And I'll bet you the CW doesn't have another program on the network that brings in that kind of viewing numbers.
The only program that brings in better viewer numbers, I think, is the NASCAR Xfinity
The
Series.
Xfinity series, yes.
I think that's the only thing they have that because that does really really well,
Yeah.
and a lot of markets don't even. You know how Nexstar owns the CW, but there are
Uh-huh.
still CWs not owned by Nexstar. Sometimes they'll just kind of run whatever the ones not owned by Nexstar kind of run whatever programming they want. So,
Okay. Yeah.
some markets don't get it.
Yeah.
The Xfinity series, I mean, I can't speak for NXT. I haven't seen many complaints because we're talking about it's really funny. The next star CW buys up the two sports or two shows, NASCAR and wrestling, that the fans constantly, I mean constantly, argue and bicker about the ratings all the
Oh,
time
yeah.
on
Yeah.
social media. The two main
Really?
sports for this. Yes, absolutely. From what I see, from where I'm sitting, oh
Uh-huh.
yeah, not even close. Like they're like, oh, ratings are down for this NASCAR race. Well, actually, ratings have been up ever since they got to the CW. I mean, every
Yeah.
Xfinity race has been incredibly well received. At least a 10% boost from where they were before. So, but then with wrestling, it's always WWE versus AEW these days. Well, it's not really a competition. WWE kind of stomps them in the
Yeah.
ratings, but
Hmm.
AEW does really well in the demos, and that's not a lot of people don't understand. It's like, why would people throw money at AEW when when they don't get the overall viewership like WWE does? Well, that's because AEW does very well in the demos. They do well in the 18 to 49, and NXT is a perfect 18 to 49 show, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So I think that that that's a good comparison for the ratings, AEW and NXT. And
Well, the
NXT does
C.
pretty well. I think AEW does a little better on Turner right
Yeah.
now, but NXT on the CW was a great masterstroke from really Nexstar get them. Uh, NXT, there were when NXT started. Okay, go back. It started as a show on the WWE network. So WWE had its own streaming service, whatnot. It ended up getting swallowed up by Peacock years down the road. But NXT, for many years, because Vince McMahon had nothing to do with the creative on it, was the best wrestling show on television.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
even close. They had so many great storylines, so many great wrestlers who have gone on to main roster
Hmm.
WWE, and just so many memorable matches and promos and whatnot. Not everything was a hit. It's a developmental brand. It's developmental.
Yeah.
It's essentially AAA for
Yes,
WWE.
that's what it is. But this
Yeah.
is actually a great thing for CW because
Mhm.
they have a WWE show that
Yes,
they're getting for a massive discount.
it's a great deal for them. Like 25 mil a year
Yeah.
for rights to NXT, which is watched by millions of people all over the
Well, like
world.
we said, 600, the average is the past three shows was
Mhm.
665,000 people.
And
That's
that's also
millions and millions of people over the course of one season.
it also helps WWE too because NXT runs its own premium live events.
Okay.
So if they have a premium live event on Peacock, that's a driver to Peacock. So
Yeah.
NBC also wins in that situation. WWE itself wins in that situation. Now NXT does a lot of special events that end up on over the air as well. So and there's a lot of great talent. Now, the cool thing about NXT to me is that you're seeing a lot of guys and gals who may have excelled at other sports collegiately, like
Yeah.
gymnastics or amateur wrestling or football, and they're getting
Yeah.
their first opportunities to be on TV in a wrestling ring. And but there's also people who have been on the independent scene for years and years and years, and now they're getting their shot in WWE, and they start off in NXT. And there's a myriad of reasons why someone would start off in NXT if they've been wrestling for a long time. There's a certain WWE style that they want to achieve. Now it's not as strict as it was when McMahon was in charge. McMahon was a crazy person. Like this guy, like you had to have things a certain way, and it
Yeah.
actually started being a detriment to wrestling itself. Um, at least WWE's version of wrestling. But then you get to see all these great, talented independent wrestlers on the big stage and actually helping mentor some of these wrestlers who didn't really grow up with it or just got a late start in their career. It's a very interesting show. It's changed a lot over the years, but it's still at its core what it was intended to do, and is to showcase the future of WWE wrestling. Because someone could be main eventing NXT one day and WrestleMania or main eventing
Yeah.
WrestleMania the next. So
Yeah. We discussed this, the fact that Xfinity Series and NXT is on the CW. You know where it's at every
Mm-hmm.
time. You don't have to go, well, it's on this streaming service this first 3 months, then I got to get another streaming service for the next 6 months. People love consistency.
Exactly. And it's so funny that the NASCAR thing that you brought this up, they're on 4 different
Yeah,
networks. The Cup
yeah,
Series is throughout the
yeah,
year. The Xfinity Series is on the same network now,
yeah,
all 35
yeah,
races. So smart. And with WWE NXT, I know where to find NXT every
yeah.
Tuesday night. So
And the other ones are the Cup Series may make tons of money. They signed a $7.7 billion deal.
mhm,
But if people aren't watching, then if they're like, well, Amazon's like, well, we're not getting that much value out of this because people
right.
don't know where we're at.
The thing is, I think a lot of people don't realize they have Prime Video.
Yeah,
If you have a
that's
Prime
true.
subscription,
You think that's true?
I
That
think that
people
is true. I think a lot of people don't realize that if you have Amazon Prime as for
you
like the
have
packages and stuff,
you have
you have
Prime
access
Video.
to Prime Video. I
Wow,
think a
I
lot of people
never
in the
thought
NASCAR
about
realm
that.
aren't understanding that. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think they're not understanding that because they're like, we need another streaming service, which sucks. I mean, it's going to
Yeah,
suck later in the year too when they're on Turner and they're going to need to have Max.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
having it in so many different places. It can get a little frustrating for fans for sure.
Mhm. Anyway, all right, so let's move on. We could talk about this whole thing. We'll do a show about streaming services and is the NFL going strictly to pay-per-view?
Another topic down
I,
the road, huh?
anyway, I think they are, but it's been around for. All right, so now we're going to talk about Friday night.
Mhm.
Friday Night SmackDown is the most viewed television show on Friday nights in the United States. Fox Deportes simulcast the program with Spanish language commentary. The Spanish community loves wrestling.
Oh,
It is a
absolutely.
big deal that they love this wrestling. So the fact that Fox Deportes is
Mhm.
in partnership with them is a great boom for them.
Absolutely. And you see, there's so many great Hispanic luchadors, Mexican wrestlers, a lot of wrestlers from Puerto Rico. So it's huge in Spanish speaking countries
Yeah,
and communities. So it's good that were able to stick with Fox for that. I know they just moved SmackDown to, they're back on NBC Universal, they're back on USA.
yeah,
They had a good, I think it was a 5 year run with Big Fox. They were on they
yeah,
were on over the air television every single Friday night. Well, for the most part, there would be sometimes it'd be preempted for another sport,
yeah.
but
They-
for the most part, they were over the air for a long time on SmackDown, which was
I
a
wonder
great
what.
benefit, and I think it worked out pretty well. I just think Fox wanted to go in a different direction. I just think they programming on Friday nights is really hard,
Yeah,
right?
do you think it was Fox's idea to drop them, or WWE found a better deal?
I think it's kind of a mutual thing on
Okay.
because it's so hard to program for Friday nights, because you have to be getting your money. You absolutely have to be getting your money's worth for a Friday night show because Friday nights it's the probably the least watched time people watch
Yeah, yeah.
television.
Friday night, back in when I was a youngster, way back in the 70s, Friday night was a big deal because there wasn't a lot going on a Friday night in most places. But now that, we progress, there's a lot of other things going on. And now there's so much television available.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a really good niche to get something on Friday night.
Yeah, and the ratings were good for an over the air show on a Friday night. It just I think it that time had passed for them.
Hmm.
I think it
Yeah,
was good. Maybe they do a deal down the road. I
yeah,
could see them do that. I think one thing that does hurt SmackDown is the fact that it's on Friday nights. Now, when SmackDown first started, it is kind of a full circle thing. SmackDown started as a UPN show over the air in 1999.
really.
Yes.
Okay.
So now that UPN is now CW, now there's CW has
Yeah,
wrestling again, and the CW actually had SmackDown itself for quite a few years. My network TV had it. It was an over the air show for a very long time, and then after I think it was early 2010s, they ended up on USA. No, they ended up on Sci-Fi, which is very strange. For spring,
Sci-Fi.
the
How many
Sci-Fi
people?
network, yeah.
How many people was going to find that?
Yeah, it was very strange. And WWE was already on Sci-Fi with their revived ECW brand, which that's a whole different topic. But it was just a very strange place to have SmackDown, and that they still were trying to do brand separation and whatnot. But Raw was clearly the priority back then. But then when SmackDown went over the air, SmackDown became the main priority. But now that SmackDown's not over the air anymore, and Raw is on Netflix as a shiny new toy, Raw is once again the priority.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you can tell they put more love into Raw than they do SmackDown these days. But that's not to say SmackDown's not a good show. WWE is still second to none when it comes to television production. When it comes to having the best cameras, the best equipment, the best graphics, the best video editors, they have that. So it's never going to be a totally boring show. You're always going to be entertained by something in WWE, even if the in-ring action isn't good or the segment was stupid or
Yeah.
whatnot. You're gonna get something out of every time you watch, and I
But
think
for
that's good.
but for Netflix, um, being on Netflix, they are going to have to. Oh. Are
So what?
you still there?
I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just something happened. Anyway, I was like, oh,
Oh,
what did it happen here? Anyway, so all right. But for Netflix, they have to put on a good show because they're getting paid all this money and they want to come out and make a big bang right off the bat.
right,
So
and it's also because they are really in deep with Netflix globally, so they
yeah,
know they're gonna have to. They know they're gonna have to hit a home run, not every week, but another cool thing. Here's another caveat to this whole Netflix thing: the ratings might be a little down for the last few weeks because they've been in Europe. Now it used to be Raw would air at 8 o'clock, right? Every time on USA or whatever network they were on. And it would be tape delayed from Europe, whatever. They're Belgium, England,
hmm
wherever they were. Now they're just like, we don't have to tape delay anything. They're airing Raw live at 2 p.m. Eastern time when
yeah,
they're overseas.
yeah.
I thought that was the coolest thing. I'm at work, I'm looking at my Twitter, I'm like, why? Why is John Cena cutting a promo on Cody Rhodes right now? What's going
Yeah.
on? Oh man, Raw's on. Let's go.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. The WWE Big Four events are Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. How do the ratings work, or do ratings don't even matter when you're actually on a streaming service getting paid for these events?
Right.
Obviously,
It's
you
so
want more people.
right. You obviously want to hit your demos and
Uh,
you want to hit your overall viewership, but those shows always have to be good. They always have to deliver because not only are they your big showcase events, like this is how you get people addicted to wrestling for their
yeah,
lives. But also, it's so many these big four events are the ones people travel to. These are like
yeah,
the these are Super Bowl like
yeah.
events for them.
These are stadium
Specifically
events.
WrestleMania. WrestleMania is expanded to a 2 night event now, which
Okay.
was the smartest thing they probably ever did. Because we were getting like seven. There was one year, I think it was 32, WrestleMania 32, which was awful, but it was like 7.5 hours long. And
Okay. Yep.
we were just like, okay, this is day one, WrestleMania day two. They count as a separate. I don't really agree with that. I just think that should be a WrestleMania thing. SummerSlam, it's culminates the storylines of the summer, and it really is kind of like the first taste of what you'll get at the next WrestleMania as well. That's usually in August. Survivor Series, still a big four, not as big as it used to be, not as important as it used to be. Still a
Okay.
great show if
Yeah.
it's done right, but it's just not what it once was. So and then there's other and now they're trying to make the other smaller pay-per-views, PLEs, premium live events, into bigger showcases. I think Elimination Chamber last year was in a one of Perth stadiums in Australia, like a 60,000 seat stadium.
Okay.
And Elimination Chamber is the pay-per-view PL. I always call pay-per-views. I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. Premium live event. Yeah, Elimination Chamber is the premium live event that is right before WrestleMania.
Okay.
And the fact they were able to get a stadium, they didn't sell the place out, but they got a good 40,000 people for that, I would say. It was a great show. So they're trying to make a lot of these events bigger than they used to be. Now, WrestleMania is always huge. Royal Rumble is always huge to me. SummerSlam is always huge. But now it's like the more minor stuff they're trying to do up bigger. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's a good thing in the short term for the money and the exposure and the internet.
Well, that's why they do it. Everything is for now. We'll work on the other end later.
Exactly. So. But like long term, I don't know. I think you devalue your bigger shows if you make everything into a big thing.
It's true, yes.
Mm. So
all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I say that's all I got for now.
Okay.
Next week we're going to do a show on salaries for all these folks. So stay tuned, folks.
That's gonna be great. Yeah. WrestleMania is next week. It's Saturday and Sunday. Okay. So we will be doing our recording while WrestleMania is on. So that's gonna be fun.
We can wait till it's over if you want, if it's going to cause you,
Oh, it won't. Issue. I can just I can pause and fast forward. Hopefully it's a match that I don't care about.
Okay. All right, folks. Well, that's it for the show on a WWE ratings. And remember to like and subscribe to Sports Economy 101 because we need a gazillion so we can help Vince McMahon out with all his efforts. So long, everybody.
So long, everybody.